Okay, so I've been using the Pentax system for 2 months now, and I think it's about time I give my impression of what I think of the lenses. I started off with 5 lenses, the 21mm, 35 and 100mm SMC lenses. And for the more modern lenses I use the 55 to 300 and the 150 to 450. However, there is one I've already sold, and that is the 21mm limited. Basically because I wasn't blown away with it on the monochrome sensor. I have no doubts that on a standard K3 Mark III with the colour sensor that the image is going to be quite sharp, wide open, etc. But with the monochrome sensor, because it is so demanding, it just didn't really interest me, the images coming out of it. Moving on to the 35mm limited macro. This is quite a nice lens. Quite a jump up in sharpness and resolution. From what I can see, it's 50-50. People either have no issues with the screw drive system or they resent it. Me personally, it's not an issue because of the way I use them. So I like to think of them as a manual lens with an autofocus feature. Okay, so for instance, let's say I'm going to be taking some landscape shots. I can quite easily put myself into the range and then use the back button autofocus to do fine adjustments of landscape shots. Equally, if I see an insect in front of me, I can quickly, with one finger, swipe round to macro magnifications without the trouble of using autofocus. Now with the 100mm macro lens, I can see why people might struggle with this, especially if you're doing portrait photography. Let's say whoever you're looking at is moving left and right. The screw drive system on this is not going to be up to par. So the lens I've been most impressed with is the 150 to 450mm. But this Pentax really reminds me of my Canon 400mm f5.6. It is like having a prime lens that can rack backwards into the wider focal lengths. I would say this might be the sharpest zoom lens I've ever used. And it's not just the resolution, but the rendition out of this lens is spectacular. I wouldn't say it has the that pop that you get from a high-end prime lens, but it has a little something to it. The character of it is quite unique. And I've noticed when I've let's say you photograph hornets, the rendition of the exoskeleton is quite surreal. Now the autofocus on this, I'm in the process of learning more about the K3 Mark III. I've been recommended by people in the comments to check out Kobe's channel for autofocus issues and how to get around that. And I've been getting progressively better at keeping continuous shots in focus. So I'm not going to say too much about the autofocus on that. Again, I'm learning the system, and realistically it takes about 6 months of continuous use to get the most out of the camera. But I will say it's not quite as fast as the 55 to 300 PLM. Now this lens has been a huge surprise to me. I have been after a small zoom for so long that gives a high quality image. I've been through all the major brands and multiple iterations of small zooms and really struggled to find one that I feel happy with. This is currently one of my most used lenses. Having that nice wide angle to way out telephoto range is brilliant. And I'm not normally fond of collapsing lenses, but I've got to say with this zoom range it really works much better than I expected. The autofocus is truly phenomenal on this. It feels like I'm using a mirrorless camera, the way it racks through closest to furthest. There is the occasional time where it seems to get a little bit confused and lock out, but again, like I said, I'm still getting used to the Pentax system, and I'm sure it's a user error. Even if you do get stuck finding focus, having the focus ring right close to the camera body is brilliant, because with your left thumb or whatever you're using, you can just quickly flick back and forth where you need to be and completely overcome any problems. So what do I think overall? We'll start with the most expensive, the 150-450. I think is as good, if not better, than the Canon 400mm L series. And more importantly for me, the close-up performance of this lens is phenomenal. The 55 to 300, again, a brilliant alternative, great for high-speed action. The 35mm macro, I'm quite happy with. It's a nice general-purpose lens with a close focus feature on it. I quite like the out-of-focus backgrounds with the 100mm. The manual focus override is excellent on it. The build quality is great. So yeah, so far so good. Shame about the 21mm lens. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are happy with it, but it just didn't do much for me. Yeah, so I hope all my initial impressions have given everyone a bit of an idea of what to expect from these lenses. The more I use this system, the more I'll get used to the characteristics of each lens, and I'll be able to give a better opinion down the line. I don't want to just jump in and give a lens review and waste people's time, when in reality I've only used them a couple of months. That is not enough time. Every lens out there has its quirks, and you've got to learn how to get around them or how to work with them. And once you know that, then you'll be able to give a sound opinion. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.